Yeah. But today's been super weird because I haven't slept for 2 days. Really. And so like this morning I was just like, ugh. And so I basically did my first 7 a.m. meeting in my pajamas with my camera off. And then I was like, I haven't done any of my morning routine, and now I just feel completely lost.
Oh, okay. Let's guide you through gently. Why haven't you been sleeping?
I don't know, just don't sleep well. It's one of those things though, with like people who have ADHD tend to sleep really badly, which makes the ADHD worse, which makes sleeping worse, and it's just this vicious cycle of bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've always had trouble sleeping. So
have you? I haven't. I don't actually have the trouble with sleeping myself. Like a lot. Sometimes I do if I've got like a big problem on my mind. But I noticed when I stopped drinking, I'm not getting up in the middle of the night for peas, which is great. That's just like a total random thing. But I thought it was just my age. I thought that I suddenly had a weak bladder at night, but no, it was all
prostate problems.
Anyway, we'll probably cut that bit out because it's like completely mad. People are not tuning into this to listen to my bladder, are they?
Well, I don't know though, because there's like, I mean, probably not, but you know, but like, because I stopped drinking. I've got like I think like 980 days ago now,
Wow.
and it is a lot, yeah. And A, I don't miss it at all, but B, yeah, I don't get up to, mostly don't get up to. Sometimes when I'm like, oh, I haven't drunk enough water today, I'll drink like 3 pints before bed, and then I will inevitably have to get up in the middle of the night. But like generally, no, I don't. I find that as well, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a revelation, isn't it?
It is.
Bladders are actually quite strong.
Yeah. So what is on our agenda for today?
We are talking about RSD.
Oh,
is that what it is called? Yeah, rejection sensitive dysphoria.
Yeah, that's one of the more fun aspects of ADHD. I find it's like the cherry on the top.
It's like, thank you, God.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you very much.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I suppose it's right to say that not everybody with ADHD suffers from all these bloody acronyms.
RSD.
Yes, RSD, which is, this extreme emotional reaction to things like criticism and rejection.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely formed a part of my life growing up, and I think one thing I came to understand it's one of the reasons why I became pregnant when I was a teenager, because I've heard that things like people with ADHD and RSD can be more susceptible to peer pressure, and I felt like this criticism thing, the rejection was something that I couldn't win. It was like a game that I couldn't win, because I thought that sleeping with boys was good because it meant that I didn't feel rejected by them, and that I was making bonds and that kind of thing. And then I realized that it upset other people because they thought I was a slut.
Oh, well, fuck those people. But also, yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It is, and this concept of not being able to please everybody all the time, or even have them not criticize you, is it's really quite difficult to get your head around if you've got RSD, isn't it? It's like you're going to have a reaction one way or another.
It is. It's really sucky, and it always made me wonder, like, what was wrong with me, because I've worked really hard to and I teach my writing clients like what criticism and feedback is, and how valuable it is, and how to reframe it. And it's taken me years to learn that, and so I'm kind of fine with that now around my writing and creative work. But when it comes to like other stuff, like I've learned not to take that so personally, although I still do. I allow myself like 10 minutes to have a temper tantrum about it. But like with the personal stuff, like the interpersonal relationships and things like that, it's really hard because it's just like, and like you, you know, it's like promiscuity is a really interesting side effect of, oh, not side effect, I don't know, but like aspect of neurodivergence, I think, because it's because it's just like this, oh well, I need to, and let's also blame the patriarchy for this as well, by the way, and the media, please. But yeah, so it's like, in order to be like accepted as a woman, it's like you have to be attractive to men. Now I'm like, fuck that. But like attractive to men, and like your worth is measured in how you look and how desirable you are in the eyes of other people, and not just men, but like other people as well. And it's just really horrible. And so it just becomes this thing, and it's like, oh well, if I want to be like a worthy person, then I need to, you know, go and sleep with that boy over there, or and God, they were like, I look back now and it's like my choices were horrific.
Mine too.
Because I did not have my pick of the hot boys. Like I was not a pretty child. I was not a pretty teenager, and it's just, yeah, it was just, I was like an over anxious stick insect is how I would describe myself. So but yeah, it was like I had a similar thing. It's like, oh yeah, if I want to be accepted, and like this is validation and this is love, and it's like it was none of those things.
Definitely none of those things. Definitely none of those things. It was just horny boys, basically.
Yes. Horny boys and girls being like, oh, this is what we have to do to please boys. Oh, what makes me really sad, like looking back on this isn't like really to do with RSD, it's just to do with teenage girls, I guess. But like none of it was for me. None of it was for my pleasure. And it was just, and it wasn't fun. And it wasn't, you know, it was quite often really just grim.
Dreadful. It was dreadful, wasn't it? I mean, God.
Yeah, and yet you kept doing it because it's like, oh well, this is what I am here for. I'm here to please other people and to make them like me in whatever way I have to do that.
Yeah, and there is a lot of crossover, isn't there, between RSD and people pleasing. They're not quite the same things, because the dysphoria is more of an intense emotional reaction to something rather than just a behavior that is kind of focused on other people. But I even had it yesterday, and you're right to say that you have to allow yourself a little bit of time to let that emotion pass through you. It was, I had a little family party here yesterday, and my sister texted me on the day saying, really sorry, can't be there, I'm going to be at work. And my initial reaction was, fucking hell, you know, you could have told me this a week ago. I was expecting her. I think it was that rejection, that feeling of rejection. And because I understand more about RSD now, it's like, whoa, let it go. She's doing her best. She said sorry, won't be there. She's wished me a very, very happy party, and there's no need to get upset with her about that. But I went from 0 to 100 of fuck you, like really badly.
It's odd, isn't it? Because it's just because I had a set, like I have it like all the time, and I came home in tears a couple of weeks ago, and Joe was like, what's happened? And what had happened was that I had arrived at the studio where I do all my aerial stuff, and there were like 4 people sitting in a circle on the floor having a conversation, and I don't know how to join conversations, right? Like nobody ever gave me that instruction manual, so I find that really difficult.
Where is that? Does it exist?
Right, hello. And so like I'd kind of walked in, and I sat down, and I was like hello, you know, said hello, and then they didn't invite me to join them, so I just sat down, and it sounded like a private conversation, although they were speaking, and I just sat there, and I got more and more awkward, and I was just like, well, obviously, and like I concocted all of this bullshit in my head as well, because they were just literally just having a conversation and would have been absolutely fine with me coming to sit with them. And I sat there and concocted this whole thing about how I wasn't welcome there and everybody hated me, and it got worse and worse and worse. And I just thought that is the perfect example of RSD. That is how it works, because it was just like none of them were thinking about me. They were all thinking about the conversation that they were having on their own. And yes, it would have been nice for them to have said, oh, come and join us, but like, we're all adults. They didn't have to do that, you know. It's like I was welcome in that space, and you know, it's up to me to make myself feel welcome in a space. You know, it's a space that I work there, I train there. It's and so the whole thing was ludicrous. Yeah, I got so upset, and then I was just like, I had to really force myself not to text the person that I was closest to in the group and be like, why do you hate me? Because it's like, you're not 12. What?
But that is one of the things that it's so enduring all the way through life, isn't it? It starts in the playground, then you get it sort of like get it as a young adult, perhaps going to nightclubs and stuff and wanting to like be part of the crowd and join in, but just thinking, no, I'm just going to dance here on my own because I don't really want to join conversations, right through to bloody like business networking and that kind of thing, where you're there to talk to other people. And I wouldn't be at all offended by somebody else coming to join my little group and talking, but the thought of joining somebody else's and just hovering is horrible. I'd rather go to the toilet.
Yeah, and actually I did in the end and had a bit of a cry, and then I was like, oh, now I look like I've been crying, and it was just it was just ridiculous. But like I always really make a point now of calling people over if I'm in a group, because it just feels so crappy when, not that I think it's necessarily my responsibility, but I know like, you know, there's lots of people like us that are like that just don't know how to join in conversations, and so like I will try and make an effort to invite people to join conversations. So if you're listening, if you're watching this, and you're wondering why somebody is sitting on the fringes looking upset, it might be that they don't know how to join your conversation. So invite them, unless they're really horrible and you hate them, in which case I don't know, do something else. So.
Yeah, I mean, don't invite awful people. They can stay on their own.
But if it's one of your friends and you're like, oh, I wonder why they're sitting on their own over there, then you know maybe they're doing what I did.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those things that almost feels worse as you get older, because you feel you should be grown up enough to do it differently.
Yeah, it's like a double helix of shame and upset, because you've got the one strand of like, why do these people hate me? And then the other strand of like, I like float out of my body and look at myself and I'm like, you're 40, I don't know how old I am, something, 4? Yeah, I'm 40 something years old, and you should like grow up. And so there's this double spiral of shame.
Exactly. And that is why it feeds into low self-esteem, anxiety, and social isolation as well, because it's easier not to go to things than it is to feel that horrible feeling.
Yeah. I've been just recently, I mean, like COVID exacerbated everything, because I found it really, have you found it really hard to go out after COVID? Like, do you have to force yourself out sometimes?
I'm just thinking, I don't go out much. Yeah, I think COVID I fucking loved, because it meant I didn't have to go out. Excuse my language. Are we allowed to swear on this? We are, aren't we?
I've sworn quite a lot, so I hope so.
Right. Yeah, COVID was. I look back on it as a golden age for me, because it was just so wonderful that I wasn't invited to places, and I wasn't going to have anybody drop in unexpectedly on me. It makes me look really antisocial. I'm not really antisocial. I do like being around people when I'm feeling good about being around those people. But yeah, COVID, wonderful.
Do you know what's funny? And this is a slight other tangent again, but like I was, because like I went through a long phase even after like lockdown had finished, when I would think about what it was like at the beginning, and I would just burst into tears, and I think it was just kind of like. And I was like, why is this happening? You know, because I enjoyed the isolation as well. For the most part, like I really missed my friends that I saw every week, because we have like a D&D group and do nerdy stuff. But like it didn't affect me in the way that it affected a lot of extroverted people and all the rest of it. But like I was just like, why am I reacting like this? And I think it's like, I don't know, like I read a lot of stuff about it, because I obviously went down a wormhole, but I think it was like the shock of the whole thing, because I didn't, like when it happened, I don't watch the news or anything. So like I went to a supermarket and saw empty shelves, and I was like, what the actual fuck? And I thought I was literally in a zombie film. And so I just like had a little panic attack in the supermarket. Like it was literally the day everything shut down.
Right, okay.
So there was kind of that. But then also I think there was like people talked about it being grief for a way of life that has like life changed forever after that. It was just really interesting. Anyway, that was nothing to do with this. So
this is what these ramblings are all about, isn't it? It's like we always go off on tangent. I actually feel it a grief for the loss of COVID and the restrictions. One of my like golden memories of all time is cycling along a dual carriageway. There were no lorries, there was nothing. It was just me on a bike in the middle of a dual carriageway, and it was incredible feeling. I'll never forget.
Really odd, because I don't have a bicycle, so I didn't do that. But what I do remember, like related to that, is the lack of aeroplanes and how quiet it was.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. I think we were very lucky to have lived through that. Obviously, I don't want another pandemic, but or do I? I didn't like the loss of life. That was
No.
tragic.
But
In my
that's
own
it.
bubble, it was great.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's like both of those things come, because I'm sure we'll get people being like, COVID was terrible and people died. It's like, yes, that is true, but it can also be true that that some people found it actually really great. And you can be like, it was terrible, and also this is true as well. So
exactly. More than one thing can exist at the same time.
I know, but not on the internet. It's so binary.
Well, I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah, but we can't please everyone.
No.
We might get criticised for this, and we're going to have to fucking deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah, that is actually talking about the sort of social media and business side of it. Do you feel like the RSD affected your business as you were developing it, that you made choices that weren't necessarily good ones?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I probably still do. I probably don't make so many choices that are affected by it now, but it still affects me. But yeah, back in the day, it was like I would bend over backwards. I mean, I will still bend over backwards for my clients, but I would do it in such a way that was unhealthy. So it was like, I remember once checking my email at like 10 p.m, which was, I never do that anymore. And this client had emailed me, like, this is from a very, very long time ago, with this problem that was not my problem. It was not of my making. It was not my responsibility to fix. And I made it my responsibility to fix it at 10:30 at night. And I was up until 2:30 in the morning. And Joe's my husband, for people watching, was just like, what are you doing? Like, are they paying you for this? And I was like, no. I can't read that now. And I was like, what?
Yeah. You were literally in self-defense mode. You were making sure that you weren't going to be rejected, criticized. Yeah,
it was ridiculous. Have you done stuff like that? I'm sure you probably have.
I have done stuff like that, and I'm very grateful to the person who we met through, John McCulloch, who he talks about positioning, doesn't he, and it being a good thing to push some people away. And that was a revelation for me, that I could sort of teach myself that was actually a good thing to do, to polarize people so that you didn't attract people that weren't good for you in a business sense.
Yeah, or in a personal sense, because you can't get on with everybody.
Well, yeah, that is true. That is absolutely true. And I think when I first started coaching, this fear of conflict and disapproval wasn't good for me as a coach. I wasn't bold enough with my clients, because I didn't want to feel that they didn't like what I was saying to them.
Yeah.
And to be a good coach, you have to say what people don't want to hear. And the same for you, isn't it? In the book writing coaching, it's like, yeah,
for sure. It's like, if I wouldn't be doing my job well or serving my clients if everything I said to them is, oh, this is really great. And it's like, and it doesn't have to be, this is shit, and I would never say that to somebody, but it's like, okay, it can't all be, yes, I'm going to tell them everything that they've done that's wonderful, but also they're coming to me because they want their books to be as good as they can be. And so sometimes that's going to mean saying, I think this needs to go, or I think this needs to change. And there is no other way of getting around that. If we don't do that, then we're not serving our clients, and they're definitely not always going to like it. And it's, when I think about when I've worked with my coaches as well, it's like they've said stuff to me that's made me really angry at first, and then I go away and think about it, and it's almost always something that I end up agreeing with. But like, would I be happy if they just told me like lovely things and patted me on the head all the time? No, not in the long run.
You're no good at all. No good at all. Yeah, because you've been through a very similar process to me in John's group, sitting in hot seats. Oh my God, that is like you're actually placing yourself in the firing line for criticism there, aren't you?
Yes.
And the rumination that can go on after that is intense, isn't it? It's like, this you make up stories in your own head about why it didn't why it didn't feel right. Why couldn't you just sit there and everybody just agree with you and go, yeah? But it's like, it doesn't happen like that, does it?
No, it does not. No.
And talking about rumination, that's one of the reasons why I've like knocked booze on the head. Is I think RSD makes that whole beer fear thing worse after drinking. If you've ever done like a big drink, I think it's called beer fear. It's when you wake up the next morning thinking, oh my God, what did I say? Who have I upset? Like,
oh. See, that for me, that didn't go away after I stopped drinking. I still wake up every morning and think, how did I fuck up yesterday?
Right, okay, yeah. that horrible intense rumination. It's not nice whether you're hungover or not, is it? But I definitely found it most intensely after I'd been drinking. I was just like, oh, what have I done? Who have I upset?
Have I told anyone to open up their legs and stuff it all in lately?
Have you seen the last video, haven't you, to appreciate that one properly?
Yeah, if you're watching this, go back and listen to the last episode for the full story.
I think when we put them all together, we're going to have to put a number. We'll have to order them so people understand what it's best to watch them in order, because that is a classic. Absolute classic. So where are we with this then, Vix? Do you think we should? Which ways have you found most useful to deal with RSD?
Oh, okay. So, and this is something that I learned from not actually a coach, or just like a fellow writer that I really admire and get on with really well online. I would love to meet her in real life one day. Margot Aaron. You should totally go and read her writing. She is amazing. She's got a background in psychology and stuff as well. But she shared just a simple question that I have stuck on my laptop right now that I am looking at, that says, "What are you making that mean?"
Right. Yeah.
And it's just so useful. So like whenever somebody says something to me, or not even says something, like maybe looks at me funny, and I'm like, I just say to myself, what am I making that mean? Because you know, I know that like my face can look like an absolute smacked ass, and I might be thinking, thinking about, oh, I wonder how much penguins weigh. But like the person that I happen to be staring in the direction of will be like, why is she glaring at me? And so like I'm always trying to, so that I think is the single most useful thing.
Yeah. And that is, do you know what? It's very similar to one of the questions, or the sort of the ways I deal with it. Really similar, actually. It's like the question, what story am I telling myself about this? It's very similar, isn't it? What am I making this mean? What story have I got going on inside my head? Because the story yesterday was like, my sister doesn't love me. Yeah. It's like, wow, of course she does. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's that is the way to kill it, isn't it? This extreme emotional reaction. You may not be able to stop the initial thing, the initial spike, but when you actually realize that, you know, it is a story, it is something that you are making it mean.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. So there's a second thing as well that I found incredibly valuable, and it's like what you just said, you can't stop the initial spike. And like I have stopped shaming myself for that initial feeling, because feelings are feelings. They're neither good or bad, right? They just are, and they're just things that happen to us. And so like I now, when I get feedback on, and I use this particularly for writing, but like really for everything, if I've asked for feedback and I get something that I don't like, I will allow myself, 10 minutes to have a literal temper tantrum about it. And I'll be like, I am really upset about this. And I will allow myself to do that, because if I don't, it's going to come back and bite me on the ass at some point later in the day. So I like get that out of my system, and then I sit myself down and I'm like, I asked for this feedback. Or even if I didn't, and if I didn't ask for the feedback, I'd be like, I didn't ask for that. They can knob off, I'm not interested. And that's really, really useful. It's like give myself that space to have my little meltdown and then really look at it like you say, it's like step back and be like, okay, not necessarily what are you making that mean, but because that's slightly different, but kind of looking at it and going, okay, how has that been given to me? How have I asked for it? Because if I did, then I'm getting what I asked for. B, how is it delivered? Maybe it's been delivered a bit brusquely, and that's fine. Ignore the tone and kind of look at the content. And C, remember that I don't have to agree with it, actually. It's like I can simply say thank you and then go, this is not useful to me. And that is also valid. And so that's been really, really valuable for me as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good point, that not all criticism is valid, is it? And
no.
It's right to have a reaction. But I think that it's reminded me something else as I've learned along my journey, is that to embrace the light and the shade, because like you say, emotions, feelings happen. And when I first started my coaching journey, I felt like I had what I called to myself positivity sickness, is that I felt like I had to be positive about everything or I was failing.
Yes.
And that's just bullshit, because
it's a life half lived.
Yeah.
But you know what? I wonder how much of that as well, because I don't know what your childhood was like, but mine, and I don't like. I had a great childhood. Like, my parents loved me very much, and I loved them. We have our issues, and like that's a conversation for a different day. But one of the things that stuck with me, and still, I was told a lot, don't cry, and so I learned from a really early age that my feelings were too big for other people. They made other people uncomfortable, and therefore it was my responsibility to squash them. And my parents were doing the best that they could with the tools that they had, and I think they could have done better, sure. But like, that's something that I've carried through, because even when my nan died, like I don't know, 10 years or so ago, I remember when my mom rang me to tell me, and like obviously I cried because it was my nan, and I was really upset because I hadn't got to see her. I was going to go and see her in hospital, and she was like, "Oh, don't cry." And I was like, literally, someone I love has just died.
Right.
Like, what? So
exactly.
And so that, I think, as well, is like that's really fed into that as well.
Yeah, I'm very much the same in that respect. I find it very difficult to allow myself to cry at times, because my mum used to say to me, "Don't cry. I don't like seeing you cry." So, like you say, the emotions were too big. But I actually grew up in quite a dysfunctional sort of family unit, which my parents stayed together. They weren't divorced, but they were both alcoholic. They didn't beat me, but they'd often knock chunks out of each other. So I kind of grew up in this environment of just unpredictability, basically. And I'd actually sort of like gone through therapy to talk about this, that my fear of conflict in many ways was like a survival mechanism for me, that if I didn't upset anybody, or if I didn't invite any criticism, then my world would stay stable. So that was sort of like, I had a lot of people pleasing behavior and a lot of fear of rejection and criticism due to being surrounded by dysfunctional people. And that's not to say they didn't love me, because I always felt loved.
Yeah.
But it was chaos in my house, like quite chaotic and a little bit scary. And interestingly, alcoholic parents are one of the trigger risk factors for ADHD as well.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah.
But so I can't remember how I got to that point now. I've gone off on my own little rap. You were saying, did your childhood?
Just like talk about big feelings and stuff, and just because like and I don't know, I think this does tie into the RSD thing as well, but like I've always had like a lot of feelings, and I've always felt like abnormally like I will cry at roadkill. I will cry at adverts of roadkill. I am a crier. And so for me, it was really difficult being told, don't cry, your feelings are too big, because they really did feel too big for me as well. Like, they felt intrinsically too big as well. And they still do. Like, when I feel something, I feel it so much. It's just like, it feels like my skin needs to split off, And so like to be told that when I was a kid, it's like, oh, don't cry, don't show your emotions, don't make other people feel uncomfortable. And that's really difficult, because like, and then when everything upsets you, like, and you're feeling those, like, you're feeling that RSD when somebody looks at you funny. And it's just like, and I will sit there and I'll be like, don't cry, don't fucking cry. And it's just like, how do you not?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It is weird. All these sort of messages we get given about normal human emotions and letting them out. It's It's like you have to toe the line and fit in, like you're saying. Don't make other people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, under no circumstances make other people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's bullshit.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and it's always like, I don't know how to deal with my feelings, and your feelings are making me feel things about my feelings, therefore I am going to make you get rid of your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And it all feeds into feelings of like damaged self-esteem and not feeling good enough to like be in the world sometimes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I hope this has helped people, because it's like it's only recently I've learned about rejection sensitive dysphoria. I didn't really know it was a thing. But the more you learn about these things, the more accepting you can feel about yourself, isn't it? So
yeah. And I think, everyone suffers from it to an extent, because, well, like most people, I won't say everybody, because I know that, okay, like I know that some autistic people don't give a shit what other people think of them, and that's a trait I sometimes admire. I wouldn't want it, but it's a trait I sometimes admire. But it's like, if you're a human, like, we would literally die if we were ostracized from our group in the olden days, and so it is a natural response. But like, for some people, it's massively heightened, and I know I'm extremely oversensitive to like even a funny look or a funny tone of voice or something like that. But even just like recognizing that. So I think if anyone's watching this, if all they take away is like, just recognize when it's happening, because that can be really helpful. And it can be really helpful to realize that that's what's going on. It's probably not you. They've probably just stubbed their toe and happen to be looking in your direction. And just remember that, what are you making that mean? What story are you telling yourself about it?
Good one.
Yeah.
Cool. So we need to wrap up soon. Next week we are meeting next week, aren't we? Yes. Have you got a particular aspect you would like to look at next week?
You know what, I had an idea this morning and now it's gone because I did not write it down. But I was thinking, do you have anything particular?
I don't have anything in particular. We wrote down. I've got a notepad somewhere with lots of things that we brainstormed when we first met up. But there's so many things, aren't there?
Oh, I've just remembered my thing from this morning, if that helps.
Oh yeah, go on. Yeah.
So just the whole like routine thing. So and this is like my constant fight between, I hate rules. Like, really hate rules, and I like to be able to do whatever the hell I want, but without a routine, without a daily routine, my entire life will collapse into a little pile of shit.
Brilliant. We will do that. We will definitely do that, because I'm very much the same. My morning routine, if I don't follow it in a particular order as well, it I just like end the day just feeling horrible because my morning didn't start well.
Yes.
So yes, we will do that. We will do that.
Oh, because I forgot to brush my teeth, and then I literally feel horrible.
And other people suffer as well for morning, because my dog doesn't get fed sometimes if my morning routine isn't like followed perfectly. It's he's there at 11 o'clock going, "Mum, not somebody."
Well, I think he needs to make an appearance on the video at some point.
Yes. All right. I'll get Eddie on.
I'll get Noodle and I might get the sheep on. I might take you outside for one and we'll get the sheep in there.
Brilliant. That would be so cool. That would be really cool. Let's do it. Let's do it.